This is music, and this is more than just a handful of first impressions. Welcome to another first impressions video. In these videos I share with you my first impressions of mainly the many CDs I have a tendency to blind buy, but I just like picking up new music, not knowing what I'm in for, taking the plunge and exploring it and sharing with you my first impressions. So let's just get down to business. I have this handful, or a bit more than a handful, of first impressions. The first one here is Misfortunes Forsaken. This is actually very interesting. This is one of those albums that when you listen to them, they're not really catchy. There's nothing really outstanding. There's nothing super memorable about them, but they're still great. And that's this album. It's death metal. It's melodic death metal without being melodic death metal, if you know what I mean. A lot of the songs have a quite melancholic feel to them, which I really appreciate. It's actually great stuff, despite not being memorable or catchy or anything outstanding. I would say the exception is the last track, Apostates of Hate, which is still death metal, but it has and some influences from, I would say, from southern rock. It's very rocky without being death and roll. So that's actually a great song. Maybe borderline kind of progressively leaning, I would say, as well. And maybe you can argue that the entire album has a slight progressive kind of hint to it at the very least. But I really enjoy this. I think it's a great album. But it's one of those albums that are also not super memorable, but I really like it. Up next you have Nocturnia by, I guess, Pelagic. This is described as stoner metal, and I can certainly hear why. You do have your 70s stoner rock influences, but to me it's too high energy to just be all out stoner stuff. I also hear an influence from 90s alternative metal and hard rock, and stuff like Helmet and things like that. The songs are actually great. I think they're very, very groovy, many of them, quite heavy, but there's also an up-tempo part. I think, as far as I remember, there are even one or two songs that have some blast beats in them. So I really enjoy this. I'm not normally a stoner metal guy, but this one just hits the right balance between, being slightly stoner and being high energy. So I really enjoyed this. Up next, Poltergeist's Nothing Lasts Forever. This is a Dive Bomb reissue, so it has some bonus material on it, as you can see. It has a demo from 1988 called Writing on the Wall. It has a demo from 1987 just called Poltergeist. As far as I remember, Poltergeist are a Swiss thrash metal band, and Swiss thrash metal has a reputation for being kind of innovative, to the extent that you accept Celtic Frost's early stuff as thrash metal. They obviously went in an avant-garde direction. Coroner, kind of very technical, very progressive. And Poltergeist are also very innovative, but they're not really progressive, I would say, or avant-garde or technical, but their music is very original, I would say. It's very melodic, don't get me wrong. It is thrash metal. It has your up-tempo aggressive parts, but it's also very melodic, and a lot of the songs I think are kind of unusual for thrash metal in general, so I really appreciate that. The vocals are also kind of their own thing. The demos are not great, they're not bad, they're interesting, but they don't hold a candle to the main album, to be honest. But they're also demos, so yeah, whatever. Interesting stuff, but the main album is great. If you like your thrash metal, especially your melodic thrash metal, I think it would make sense to check it out. Up next, some death metal here by Putrid Evocation. It's called Echoes of Death. Look at this cover artwork. It's just fantastic. And the back cover, inverted crosses, the casket. Doesn't get any better than this. This is old school death metal. A lot of the parts are kind of mid-tempo and a bit heavy as well. And then you have some up-tempo parts. And the up-tempo parts are, for the most part, old school death metal riffage from, you know, in the very early day when you still had a lot of hints and traces of thrash metal in death metal. And one thing I really like about this is that some of the up-tempo parts are crusty and hardcore punky. So it's old school death metal with a touch of crust, I would say. The production has quite a lot of reverb on it, and the vocals have a lot of reverb too. So it does sound quite murky. So I don't know if this is what Mark G with a C would call nasty, horrible death metal. And remember that when it comes to death metal, nasty and horrible are positive adjectives. And I also don't know if this is what counts as cavernous death metal, if it's that kind of reverby kind of production, because it does sound a bit like it's recorded in a cave somewhere. I don't know if that's the case. It does make it a bit murky, but I quite enjoy it. And as I said, I really like the crusty parts. So if you are into maybe cavernous death metal, maybe Putrid Evocation is something that's worth checking out. Up next, something quite different. The Quiet Room, self-titled as far as I remember. This is progressive metal, quite melodic progressive metal. It certainly has its influences from Dream Theater, but it is more accessible, less wanky than Dream Theater can admittedly be, although I'm a big fan of Dream Theater. So it's less show-offy, but you do have some very technical guitar solos for sure. At times it's even symphonic without it being symphonic progressive metal in general. Very melodic, great vocals, just great compositions. I would say it falls more on the, shall we say, Parallels, maybe Perfect Symmetry era. Fate's Warning, maybe a bit more technical than that era of Fate's Warning. There are some quite heavy parts as well, but we never get no exit heavy. But yeah, it's great, great progressive metal, which should appeal to fans of both Dream Theater and Fate's Warning and all that good stuff. I really enjoyed listening to this. If you come across a copy of it and you are a progressive metal fan, I suggest you pick it up. Up next, again, something quite different. Riot City, Burn the Night. This is just amazing. It's somewhere in between speed metal and traditional heavy metal. And I would also say that maybe there's a slight touch of power metal as well. It has all the things I like about just heavy metal music. It has the aggression. It has your twin guitar harmonies. It has the melody. It has just amazing screaming, high-pitched vocals. Just fantastic. If you like your traditional metal, if you like your speed metal, like Agent Steel or something like that. If you like your power metal, Halloween, Blind Guardian. If you like your, like I said, traditional metal, Maiden, Priest, do check this one out. And actually, I just heard a snippet from their latest album as well. While I was in Mephisto, they had that playing in the background, and that sounds like that's even better than this one. So, Riot City, freaking awesome music. And the last one is Metal Minds by Razor Fist. Now this one is out on Pure Steel. The last Pure Steel, or at least Pure Steel affiliated release I talked about in this series was Ninja, which I was a bit disappointed at. But this one, not disappointing at all. Actually, Razor Fist is kind of in the same neighborhood as Riot City, except Razor Fist is much thrashier and maybe less heavy metalier, although it does have lots of traditional heavy metal elements in it. But it's more thrashy, more speedy, more aggressive. Great stuff, fantastic riffs. The vocals are also amazing. The dude sounds like I guess, I don't know how this is even possible, but the love child of the guy from Cirith Ungol and John Connolly, I think is his name, from Nuclear Assault. And I would also say maybe a little bit of Rob Halford. So kind of a weird three-way love child. It's great thrash metal. I would say maybe the difference between Riot City and Razor Fist is that Riot City leans more towards the maybe traditional heavy metal side of things, and Razor Fist leans more towards the thrashy and speed metal side of things. So they kind of form a continuum. So I'm pretty sure that if you like this one here, there's a chance you will also like this one here. And if you like this one here, there's a chance you'll also like this one here. So these two are just absolutely amazing heavy metal, thrash metal, speed metal, power metal albums. If you like that stuff, I think you would enjoy these two albums. So these were my first impressions this time around. If any of this sounds like it's interesting to you, do yourself a favor and check out one or more of these albums on your own. Thanks for watching.